Hey everyone, hold on to your popcorn because we're about to unpack one of the most jaw-dropping Hollywood disasters in recent memory, a movie that had everything going for it, but ended up as a textbook example of how to crash and burn in spectacular fashion. We're diving deep into It Ends With Us, the Blake Lively-led adaptation of Colleen Hoover's blockbuster novel that was supposed to be a defining moment for its star and a powerful story about survival. Instead, it became a chaotic mess that sparked outrage, tanked reputations, and left fans, critics, and survivors feeling betrayed. How did a project with so much promise go so wrong? Was it the book's controversial roots, Blake Lively's creative missteps, or a series of catastrophic choices? Stick with me until the end because we're peeling back every layer of this Hollywood train wreck, and trust me, you won't want to miss a single moment of this wild ride. Let's start at the beginning with the book that lit the fuse. Colleen Hoover's It Ends With Us, published in 2016, was a cultural phenomenon. Thanks to Book Talk, it became a global obsession, with fans raving about its heart-wrenching mix of romance, trauma, and resilience. The story follows Lily Bloom, a young woman who moves to Boston to chase her dreams, only to find herself caught in a turbulent love triangle. There's Ryle Kincaid, a charming neurosurgeon whose dark, abusive side slowly emerges, and Atlas Corrigan, Lily's first love, tied to a painful past marked by her father's abuse of her mother. Domestic violence is the story's core, exploring how trauma shapes relationships and choices. Fans loved its raw emotion and relatable characters, but the book had its detractors. Some praised its unflinching look at abuse. Others slammed it for romanticizing toxicity, arguing that the steamy romance overshadowed the serious issues. That divide was a warning sign for anyone daring to adapt it for the big screen. Now, let's talk about Blake Lively, the star who saw this project as her big break. If you know her from Gossip Girl, where she dazzled as Serena van der Woodsen, or from crowd pleasers like The Age of Adeline and The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, you know Lively's got charisma to spare. By the early 2020s, she was ready to move beyond her rom-com roots and prove she could handle serious, dramatic roles. She'd already shown versatility in thrillers like The Shallows and dark comedies like A Simple Favor, but It Ends With Us was her chance to level up, to join the ranks of Hollywood's elite actresses who balance star power with substance. Lively didn't just sign on to play Lily Bloom. She took on a producer role, giving her major control over the film's creative direction. This was her passion project, her shot at showing the world she was a storyteller, not just a celebrity. But passion can blind you, and Lively was about to step into a minefield. Adapting. It Ends With Us was a high-stakes gamble from the jump. The book had a fiercely loyal fan base that expected every emotional beat to hit the screen, but its critics were vocal, calling out how it blurred the line between romance and abuse. Ryle's arc, from dreamy love interest to abuser, was central, and some readers saw it as a realistic portrayal of how abuse can hide behind charm. Others felt the book glamorized his toxicity, with the romance taking center stage over the trauma. The filmmakers faced a daunting task: stay true to the book's emotional core for fans, address its flaws for critics, and handle domestic violence with the care it demands. That's a tough job for any team, especially one led by a producer new to the game like Lively. With millions of eyes watching and expectations through the roof, the pressure was intense. Things started to go south during production, and it's here where the cracks really began to show. Lively wasn't just acting, she was shaping the movie's entire identity. As a producer, she had her hands in everything: the script, the casting, the editing, the music, even the tone. This level of control can be a game changer when it clicks, but it's a massive risk when you're dealing with a story as delicate as this one. The director, Justin Baldoni, who also played Ryle, reportedly wanted a darker, more grounded drama that leaned into the story's weighty themes. But Lively, shaped by her rom-com background, seemed to push for a lighter, more accessible vibe. Think less Manchester by the Sea and more crazy, stupid love. Reports later hinted at creative clashes, with Lively's vision steering the film toward a romantic, almost glossy feel. The result was a movie that couldn't commit to an identity. Was it a love story? A trauma drama? A tale of empowerment? It tried to be everything, and ended up a confusing, disjointed mess that left audiences scratching their heads. The film's handling of domestic violence was its most glaring failure, and it's where the backlash ignited. Domestic violence is a topic that demands respect, nuance, and authenticity. Survivors deserve a story that honors their experiences, not one that uses their pain as a plot device. But it ends with us, botched this in every way. The abuse scenes were rushed, treated like stepping stones to the next romantic moment, rather than the devastating reality they represent. Ryle's abusive behavior, moments that should have been heart-wrenching, were downplayed, making it hard for viewers to grasp the stakes. Instead, the movie lingered on the love triangle, with swoony montages of Lily and Ryle's early days or nostalgic flashbacks to her past with Atlas. Critics called it hollow and exploitative, saying it trivialized a serious issue. For survivors, it was worse. It felt like their stories were being used as window dressing for a Hollywood romance. Then there's the marketing, which might be the most infuriating part of this whole debacle. If you saw the trailers, you'd think, It Ends With Us was a classic rom-com, complete with soft-focus kisses, flirty banter, and a pop-heavy soundtrack. The ads were all about Lily and Ryle's chemistry, with sweeping shots of their passionate moments and barely a whisper of the abuse at the story's core. This wasn't just a misstep, it was a betrayal of trust. People walked into theaters expecting a light, emotional love story, and were blindsided by scenes of abuse that came out of nowhere. Survivors in particular felt betrayed, with no trigger, warnings, or resources to prepare them for the heavy content. Social media exploded, with posts on X calling the marketing deceptive and irresponsible. One user wrote, "I thought I was watching a romance, not a movie about abuse. Where was the heads up?" The critical response was nothing short of savage. Major outlets like the New York Times, The Guardian, and The Washington Post tore the film apart. Reviewers called it a tonal train wreck with sloppy editing and jarring music choices. Mark Kennedy, a prominent critic, said it failed at basic storytelling, bouncing between rom-com fluff and dark drama without ever finding its footing. The soundtrack was a lightning rod. Upbeat songs like Taylor Swift's My Tears Ricochet clashed with scenes that needed gravitas, making serious moments feel cheap. The editing was just as chaotic, with subplots, like Lily's friend wearing Valentino on a retail salary, that went nowhere, and characters who felt half-baked. And who was behind these choices? Blake Lively. Her producer role meant she shaped the final cut, and critics didn't hesitate to point fingers at her influence as the root of the problem. Audiences were equally unforgiving. Book fans felt the movie betrayed the novel's depth, turning a layered story into a glossy cliché. Newcomers were baffled by the tonal whiplash, unable to connect with characters who felt one-dimensional. Survivors of domestic violence were the most vocal, sharing raw, emotional posts about how the film romanticized abuse instead of condemning it. On X, the sentiment was clear. "This movie made a mockery of survivors' pain," one user wrote. Another said, "Blake Lively took a story about strength and turned it into a love triangle. It's infuriating." The backlash wasn't just about a bad movie. It was about a broken promise to tell a story that mattered, especially to those who'd lived it. So, how did Blake Lively handle the firestorm? Not well. Instead of owning the film's flaws, she reportedly blamed a coordinated social media campaign for the negative reception. This was a massive misstep. The criticism wasn't coming from a few loud trolls. It was coming from fans, critics, and survivors who felt genuinely hurt. By deflecting blame, Lively came across as dismissive, unwilling to take responsibility for her role in the mess. Hollywood values accountability, and her response raised red flags. Fans who'd adored her since Gossip Girl started questioning her judgment, while industry insiders whispered about whether she'd bitten off more than she could chew. When you're the face of a project this high profile, you can't just point fingers. You have to own the fallout. Colleen Hoover's role deserves a closer look, too. The book's flaws set the stage for trouble. Hoover's writing has a massive following, but her critics argue she leans too hard into toxic romance, and It Ends With Us was no exception. The novel's mix of steamy love and abuse was already divisive, and the film needed to address those issues, not amplify them. But instead of rethinking the story's approach, the filmmakers leaned into the romance, doubling down on the book's mistakes. Hoover stayed mostly silent during the backlash, but her brand took a hit. Some fans defended her, saying the movie botched the adaptation, while others argued the novel's problems were always going to doom the film. Either way, the book's shaky foundation didn't do the movie any favors. Let's talk about Blake Lively's career, because this wasn't just a bad movie. It was a make-or-break moment that went horribly wrong. Lively had spent years building a brand as Hollywood's golden girl. Gossip Girl made her a star, and her charm carried her through hits like The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants and A Simple Favor. She'd proven she could handle drama, comedy, even action. But It Ends With Us was her shot at the big leagues, a chance to join the ranks of actresses who balance star power with serious roles. Instead, it became a career-defining misstep. As the project's star and producer, Lively was the face of its failure, and her response, blaming social media instead of owning her choices, made things worse. Hollywood is a tough place, and a flop this loud can cast a long shadow. So is her career done? Not necessarily. Hollywood loves a redemption story. Think of Ben Affleck, who went from Geely to Oscar glory, or Robert Downey Jr., who rebuilt his life to become Iron Man. Lively's still got talent, charisma, and a loyal fan base. But this wasn't just a box office bomb. It was a breach of trust. Fans felt betrayed by her handling of a sensitive topic, and industry pros questioned her creative instincts. To bounce back, she'll need to show humility and make smarter choices. Maybe that means a supporting role in a prestige drama or a return to her rom-com roots. But she'll need to rebuild trust, and that starts with accountability. A public acknowledgement of It Ends With Us's shortcomings could go a long way. Could the film have been saved? It's a tough call. The book's issues made it a risky bet from the start. Domestic violence is a complex topic, and turning it into a mainstream movie without losing nuance was a challenge. But the filmmakers didn't help themselves. They could have consulted experts on abuse to get the tone right. They could have marketed it honestly, with trigger warnings and resources for survivors. They could have let Baldoni's darker vision guide the project instead of chasing rom-com vibes. Instead, every decision, from Lively's creative control to the misleading trailers, seemed to court disaster. A more experienced team might have pulled it off, but we'll never know. The fans deserve a moment here. For every viewer who hated the movie, there were others who wanted to love it. Hoover's book meant a lot to people. Some saw their own struggles in Lily's story, and they hoped the film would honor that. Instead, it turned a powerful narrative into a shallow love triangle, complete with pop songs and pretty visuals. That betrayal fueled the backlash. Fans didn't just feel disappointed. They felt cheated by a story they'd trusted. When you take something personal and turn it into a Hollywood cliché, you're going to lose people, and It Ends With Us lost a lot of them. What can Hollywood learn from this? First, sensitive topics need respect. Domestic violence isn't a plot device. It's a reality for millions. If you're telling that story, you owe it to your audience to do it right. That means research, consultation with survivors, and a commitment to truth. Second, know your limits. Lively's ambition was inspiring, but she took on too much. Acting and producing a story this heavy was a stretch, and her inexperience showed. Sometimes, stepping back and letting experts lead is the best move. Finally, Marketing matters. Selling a movie about abuse as a rom-com isn't just misleading, it's unethical. Transparency, trigger warnings, and resources could have made a difference, but the team chose profit over principle. For Blake Lively, the path forward is tricky but not impossible. She's still a star, with a fan base and plenty of industry connections. Her next moves will define her future. A smart play might be a low-key role in a respected director's film, something that shows she's serious about growth. Or she could lean into her strengths with a fun, crowd-pleasing rom-com to win back fans. But whatever she does, she'll need to address the "it ends with us" fallout. A simple, honest statement, something like, "We tried to tell an important story, but we missed the mark," could rebuild some goodwill. Hollywood respects humility, and fans crave authenticity. If she can deliver both, she's got a shot. Was this disaster inevitable? I don't think so. The book had flaws, but a skilled team could have turned it into something powerful. The problem was execution. Every step, from script to screen, was a misfire. Lively's push for a lighter tone, the marketing's romance bait and switch, the failure to consult experts, it all added up. A director with a stronger vision or a producer with experience in heavy dramas could have made a difference. Instead, "It Ends With Us" became a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the biggest stars and the hottest books can't save a project if the fundamentals, story, tone, and respect, aren't there. Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. "It Ends With Us" isn't just a flop, it's a symptom of Hollywood's growing pains. The industry loves adapting buzzy books, but not every story translates to the screen. When you're dealing with topics like abuse, you can't cut corners. You need time, care, and a willingness to prioritize impact over profit. This film also shows the risks of giving one person too much power. Lively's control was a double-edged sword. Her passion drove the project, but her inexperience derailed it. Hollywood thrives on collaboration, and this movie could have used more voices at the table. But let's dig even deeper into the production chaos. Beyond the creative clashes, there were logistical missteps that compounded the film's problems. The script, written by Christy Hall, was criticized for its clunky dialogue and lack of depth. Lines that worked on the page fell flat on screen, and the characters, especially Lily, felt underdeveloped. Lively's influence as a producer extended to script revisions, and some reports suggest she pushed for changes to make Lily more likable, which diluted the character's complexity. The casting, while solid on paper, also raised eyebrows. Baldoni's dual role as director and Ryle sparked debate. Could he objectively portray an abuser while steering the film? Supporting characters like Jenny Slate's quirky friend felt out of place, with their subplots adding little to the story. These choices, many tied to Lively's vision, turned a potentially powerful film into a scattered narrative. The music choices deserve their own spotlight because they were a disaster in their own right. Music can make or break a film's emotional impact, setting the tone for key scenes. But in It Ends With Us, the soundtrack felt like it was pulled from a different movie. Critics noted that upbeat pop tracks, like the Lumineers' Ophelia, in a scene meant to convey tension, clashed with the story's darker moments, undermining their weight. Lively, as a producer, had a hand in selecting the music, and her preference for mainstream radio-friendly songs leaned too heavily into her rom-com comfort zone. The result was a film that felt emotionally dishonest, with music that cheapened the very issues it was trying to address. Imagine watching a scene of abuse underscored by a catchy pop tune. It's jarring, and it alienated audiences who wanted to feel the story's gravity. Let's not forget the editing, which was another nail in the coffin. The film's pacing was all over the place, with abrupt shifts between lighthearted romance and heavy drama that gave viewers whiplash. Subplots, like Lily's obsession with Carhartt clothing or her friend's inexplicable wealth, were introduced and then abandoned, leaving loose ends that frustrated audiences. The final cut clocked in at just over 2 hours, but critics argued it felt both rushed and bloated. Key emotional moments were glossed over, while unnecessary scenes dragged on. Lively's role in the editing room was significant, and her choices, prioritizing romantic montages over deeper character work, contributed to the film's lack of cohesion. It's like she wanted to make a movie that was easy to watch, but the subject matter demanded something raw, something real. The marketing missteps weren't just about the trailers. They extended to the entire promotional campaign. The film's social media presence leaned hard into the romance angle, with Instagram posts showcasing Lily and Ryle's swoon-worthy moments and TikTok videos set to trending songs. There was little effort to acknowledge the story's darker themes, and when domestic violence was mentioned, it was framed as a secondary plot point, not the heart of the narrative. Lively herself contributed to this narrative during press interviews, focusing on the love story and Lily's empowerment while sidestepping the abuse angle. This wasn't just a failure of the marketing team, it was a strategic choice to prioritize commercial appeal over honesty, and it backfired spectacularly. Survivors and advocacy groups called out the campaign for its insensitivity, noting that it could have included resources or even a simple disclaimer about the content. The fallout wasn't just limited to reviews and social media. It had real-world implications. Domestic violence organizations, like the Network for Victim Recovery of DC, published op-eds slamming the film for its irresponsible portrayal of abuse. They argued that It Ends With Us missed a chance to educate audiences about the realities of abusive relationships, instead opting for a sanitized, romanticized version that could mislead viewers. Some survivors shared personal stories online, explaining how the film's lack of trigger warnings and shallow depiction of trauma left them feeling re-traumatized. This wasn't just a bad movie. It was a missed opportunity to use a massive platform for good, and the public's anger reflected that. Let's circle back to Blake Lively's career trajectory, because the stakes here were enormous. Lively had built a brand on being likable, stylish, and relatable. Her red carpet charm and social media savvy made her a fan favorite, and her marriage to Ryan Reynolds only boosted her Hollywood clout. But It Ends With Us was her chance to redefine herself as a serious artist, someone who could tackle tough topics and lead a major production. Instead, it exposed her limitations. Her inexperience as a producer showed in every frame, from the tonal inconsistencies to the marketing blunders. Her refusal to own the film's flaws, opting instead to blame online critics, further damaged her image. Hollywood is a place where perception is everything, and Lively's Golden Girl aura took a serious hit. But let's not write her off just yet. Hollywood is full of comeback stories, and Lively has the tools to rebuild. She's still young, with a proven track record and a fan base that hasn't completely abandoned her. Her next project will be critical. Something like a supporting role in a critically acclaimed drama could show she's willing to learn and grow. Alternatively, she could lean back into her strengths with a light-hearted rom-com to remind audiences why they fell in love with her. But the elephant in the room is It Ends With Us. A public gesture of accountability, maybe an interview where she acknowledges the missteps, could go a long way toward repairing her image. Fans forgive humility, and Hollywood rewards resilience. The question is whether Lively can swallow her pride and take that step. Could this film have been salvaged? It's a tough question. The book's issues, its romanticized take on abuse, and polarizing tone, made it a risky proposition from the start. But a skilled team could have navigated those challenges. Imagine if the filmmakers had brought in domestic violence experts to shape the story, ensuring it respected survivors' experiences. Picture a marketing campaign that was honest about the film's themes, with trigger warnings and resources for viewers. Envision a director with experience in heavy dramas, like Denis Villeneuve or Lisa Cholodenko, steering the ship instead of a first-time producer like Lively. The pieces were there for a powerful film, but every choice, from the rom-com-leaning tone to the deceptive trailers, seemed designed to undermine it. The fans deserve a special mention because their disappointment was palpable. For every viewer who hated the movie, there were others who desperately wanted to love it. Hoover's book resonated with millions, particularly those who saw their own trauma reflected in Lily's journey. The film could have been a chance to bring that story to life with care and authenticity, to give survivors a narrative that felt empowering. Instead, it turned a meaningful story into a shiny, shallow love triangle, complete with pop songs and pretty visuals. That betrayal fueled the backlash. Fans didn't just feel let down, they felt like their trust had been violated. When you promise a story about survival and deliver a rom-com with a side of trauma, you're going to make people angry. What lessons can Hollywood take from this debacle? First, sensitive topics require responsibility. Domestic violence isn't a plot twist. It's a lived reality for millions. If you're telling that story, you need to do your homework, consult experts, and prioritize authenticity over profit. Second, collaboration is key. Lively's ambition was admirable, but her inexperience as a producer showed. Giving one person too much control, especially on a project this complex, is a recipe for trouble. Hollywood thrives on diverse voices, and this film could have benefited from more input. Finally, marketing can't lie. Selling a movie about abuse as a romance isn't just misleading, it's unethical. Transparency, trigger warnings, and resources could have softened the blow, but the team chose box office appeal over integrity. For Blake Lively, the road ahead is daunting, but not hopeless. She's still a star with a fan base and industry connections to lean on. Her next moves will be make or break. A smart choice might be a low-key role in a respected director's project, something that shows she's serious about growth. Or she could return to her rom-com roots with a fun, crowd-pleasing film to rebuild goodwill. But she can't ignore It Ends With Us. A genuine acknowledgement of the film's flaws, maybe a heartfelt statement or an interview, could help mend fences with fans and critics. Hollywood respects those who learn from their mistakes, and fans crave authenticity. If Lively can show both, she's got a fighting chance. Was this disaster inevitable? I don't think so. Yes, the book had issues, but a talented team could have turned it into something special. The problem was execution. Every decision, from Lively's creative overreach to the marketing's romance bait and switch, was a misfire. A director, with a stronger vision, a producer with experience in heavy dramas, or a marketing team with a shred of integrity could have changed the outcome. Instead, It Ends With Us became a masterclass in what not to do. A reminder that even the biggest stars and the hottest books can't save a project if the basics, story, tone, and respect, are missing. Let's zoom out and look at the broader Hollywood landscape. It Ends With Us isn't just a flop. It's a symptom of an industry grappling with its priorities. The rush to adapt buzzy books often ignores whether those stories are suited for the screen. When dealing with topics like abuse, you can't prioritize profit over impact. This film also highlights the dangers of unchecked creative control. Lively's passion was a driving force, but her inexperience was a liability. Hollywood works best when it's collaborative, and this project needed more voices to balance the vision. We've covered a ton, from Colleen Hoover's polarizing book to Blake Lively's career-defining misstep, from the film's fatal flaws to the lessons Hollywood must learn. Thanks for sticking with me through this epic deep dive. What's your take? Can Blake Lively bounce back, or is this the end of her A-list days? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep the conversation going. If you loved this breakdown, smash that like button, subscribe for more Hollywood stories, and share this video with your friends. Until next time, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.